everyone. Welcome to Fan Sports Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marcelio Langella. And Mars, this is our Week 4 Class A show. Again, another week of football. A bunch of teams coming back from a COVID pause. I believe most of the games are going to be played out of the A division. I think Beacon is the only one, and that was a late change. Beacon is still in pause. I think Nyack took its place versus Somers. So everybody else, I think, is playing, which is good news. Absolutely, right? Mm-hmm. So let's dive into it, Mars. We'll go over the slate of games. We're going to pick the 6 big games, including our game of the week, and then we'll pick all the games at the end. Obviously, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure you give a subscribe, give a thumbs up, and obviously follow us on Twitter and Instagram if you haven't already. But let's dive into it, Mars. Let's look at the games. Harrison 3-0 at John Jay Cross River, who's 3-0. That's on Friday. Lakeland at Walter Panas, their big rivalry on Friday. Spring Valley at Tappen Z, that's Friday as well. Clarkstown South at Clarkstown North, to talk about a big-time Rockland rivalry, that's Friday as well. Somers versus Nyack, a real interesting game on Friday, late edition. It's amazing how these teams, just like we're going to play you in a couple days. Lourdes at Brewster, another interesting matchup. That's Friday as well. Going to Saturday, we have Rye at Eastchester. Another Saturday game, Pelham at Sleepy Hollow. A Monday game, Yorktown at Greeley. And on Tuesday, Mayapack at Clarkstown North. Clarkstown North, you just heard me say it twice. They're playing 2 games in 4 days. So another, very unusual time. But let's dive into it, Mars. We'll pick 6 games, pick all the games at the end. But I do want to start Lakeland at Walter Panas. Lakeland is 1-2 at Walter Panas, 0-3. These guys, big rivalry. But Lakeland has owned the matchup lately. 10-5 versus Walter Panas since 2004, including a win in 2019 where they won 42-14. But Lakeland has lost 2 straight. They lost to Yorktown, John Jay Cross River, 2 very good opponents. Walter Panas went to 0-3. They're looking for their first victory. They lost to RCK, and Walter Panas would love this to be their first win of the season against their rivalry. But let's start with Lakeland, Mars. Offensively, it's been a bit of a grind. They average 11 points a game, which is 13th out of the 20 teams in A. I think the best thing they could do is run the ball with Labriola. He averages 4.6 yards a carry and get ahead of the chains. And if they could do that behind the offensive line, who I thought has run blocked pretty well, try to get this pass attack on track. And this is going to be a group effort. Obviously, it starts with their quarterback, Santucci, who I really like, and we talked about him preseason. But he's been under 50% completion percentage the last 2 games. He's faced pressure in his face. We just have to be better overall, right? Santucci, the offensive line, everyone's got to be able to get the weapons. The good news is I don't think they're going up against as good of a front as Yorktown and John Jay Cross River had. So I think they'll have less pressure on them. But you want to see Santucci make some plays with his arms and his legs. And you want to see some of these guys on the offensive end make plays for him, a guy like Cummings in the passing game, right? So I want to see this passing attack get back on track. They're going against a defense that gives up 36 points a game so far this year, Mars. So I'm looking for the pass attack to get on track. I'm looking for them to run the ball, get ahead of the chains with Labriola, and then throws now to Mulvern, Cummings with Santucci, and Santucci to have a bounce-back game. Defensively, Mars, they give up 18.7 points a game, which is 10th out of 20th. So they're right in the middle. This defense has been pretty solid overall, in my opinion. And it's with the activity of one of their better players, Libretti, at the linebacker spot. He's had 10-plus tackles in 3 straight games, Mars. He's been really solid for them. He's going to lead this unit, try to stop this Walter Panas rush attack, who I thought did some pretty good things against RCK. I think offensively that's the better unit for Walter Panas. But got other guys on the defense, Mars, McGannon, Mulhern, and Libretti. They got to control the front 7. They got to make some plays. And then on the back end, a guy like Brendan Brown made a bunch of plays last week. So you're going to see Walter Panas. They're going to try to spread you out. They're going to try to make plays in space. So for me, Lakeland, prevent the big plays. Don't let Walter Panas get momentum. Don't let Walter Panas hit some big plays. Get the confidence up in this offense. Try to shut him down early on early downs. Get him into long situations. They did throw a pick 6 last week. Right? Allow your secondary then to make some plays and get them down in the distance, Mars. What's your thoughts on Lakeland?
Yeah, Lakeland just needs to be efficient. I think that they need to kind of, grind out behind this big, effective offensive line. I think they need to run the ball, give Santucci kind of ease off a little bit because he's been struggling. I mean, you kind of when a quarterback's struggling, you need to develop the run game. and allow the quarterback to kind of benefit off of play action.
Get his confidence back.
Yeah, get his confidence back, make some efficient throws, go short, just keep hitting those short, high pass ability, catchability type of throws, and then build from there. I think the offense just needs to kind of develop that nice pace, nice momentum going forward. Defensively, it's really going to be about the solid front seven. They need to kind of own the line of scrimmage. They've been having good linebacker play so far. Well, when it comes to Panas, as you said, they're going to try to spread you out. I mean, you have to cause some pressure and force Panas to kind of make mistakes. And I mean, that's just quite simple as it is. Offense, control the pace. Defense, control the pace.
Yep. Looking at Walter Panas, Marks, offensively, I think it's that their better unit. And offensively, they're still trying to rebuild and form their identity. I do think they did some really good things last week. They like to spread you out, beat you in space, but it has to start up front. A guy like Annucci leading the charge, they got to create some holes for this team. They got to, allow the quarterback not to feel pressure and make some easier throws because you're going up against a solid front seven in Lakeland. We just talked about it. To me, I thought number 34, I think his name is Dunn. I thought he had some really nice runs. He had that long touchdown run against RCK. And I think, if you can get the running game going, it'll take some pressure off your quarterback. We talked about it with Lakeland. Same thing with Walter Panas. The quarterback D'Souza, if you can get the run play going, then you can go play action with him and make some plays in the passing game. But they got to protect the ball. They had that pick six. The offense has had some negative plays that have really hurt them in multiple games this year. So the big thing for the quarterback, protect the ball, hit some play action plays that are there, but the big thing is up front and running the ball against the Lakeland front. That some teams have had success running the ball, so they're going to have to kind of go off that script. They'll spread you out and got to try to run the ball. Defensively, you give up 36 points a game, right? They just give up too many big plays. That's really the big thing. You have to prevent big plays. Force teams to drive on you, right? So don't give up these big chunk plays, these long touchdowns without forcing an offense to have long drive down the field. So they got to do a better job of preventing big plays. I don't think they're going to go up against the size that RCK has in this Lakeland team. I know you said they have solid size up front, but not to the same size as RCK. So size is not going to be as big of a factor to me. I think one of their defensive linemen, Carter, has been very active the last few weeks. He's going to have to be a guy who leads that penetration. And see if the secondary can force some turnovers. I look, Santucci has turned the ball over a few times. So you look at guys like Lugo, Constantino, Carlucci. They got to make some plays in the secondary when they go into the pass attack, but it does have to start. You got to stop Labriola. You need to get some penetration up front. Mars, what are your thoughts on Walter Panas?
I mean, Walter Panas is still trying to figure out their identity. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a young program. I mean, with a brand newer coaching staff, and at the end, it's always tough to kind of go into your second season as the coach and try to in a COVID season try to revamp and rebuild. It's super difficult to do. At the end of the day, it all starts with trying to develop the run. I mean, I know that football has become more of a passing game, but you need to have a run attack in order to open up what you really would like to do, especially when it comes to passing. And I think that Panas needs to do so. When it comes to defense, you need to limit the big plays, be the bend but don't break type of defense. As you mentioned before, force them to have to drive all the way down the field to score on you, rather than just have it make it easier, make an easier big time play to score. And honestly, it's about forcing Santucci to continue to struggle. I mean, winning the front, stopping the run, and forcing Santucci to make those deep throws, those intermediate throws to get the first downs. Then it's in your favor. So I think it's defensively you need to be efficient.
Yeah, I'm thinking Coach Castro. This is his first year.
I think it might be his first year because COVID makes you think it's the second year. Yeah, it's his first
COVID
year.
has made the timeline all straight up.
It's just crazy to think because usually I'm so used to fall.
Yeah, but for me, Mars, the matchup, I'm looking at this Lakeland rush attack that has been pretty darn solid for this group against this Walter Panas defensive front. So Walter Panas can't stop the run. It's going to make life a lot easier for Lakeland to get the passing game going. It could cause some serious problems. So that's going to be good for them. Let's go to the next game, Mars. Spring Valley 2-0 at Tappen Z, who's 1-1. Spring Valley is 4-2 with this matchup, including a win in 2018. Spring Valley beat Valley Central last week. Tappen Z was on COVID pause after their nice victory against Beacon. But let's start with Spring Valley. Offensively, we know they have speed, right? But last time we saw Tappen Z lose, they played Clarkstown South, and Clarkstown South was able to run downhill on Tappen Z. And I tell you, Spring Valley showed that ability against Clarkstown South. I'm interested to see if they try to use a similar formula against Tappen Z. And you can look at a running back, Etienne and Duncan type of game where they're going to run off tackle, run downhill, not so much outside runs, but they're going to try to attack the power that they have and run behind this offensive line that I got to tell you, for Spring Valley, has been impressive. Right? They have impressed me. They have moved bodies. So I'm expecting them to, run downhill, and then that's going to open up the outside stuff. I think they'll hit some passes, some outside runs with Bellafleur, with Makai Jones, Hobson, Rochelle Paul, who had 2 touchdowns last week. So, they have a lot of weapons, Spring Valley. Right? The biggest thing is don't turn the ball over. Right? Keep the tempo up to keep Tappen Z off balance, and I think that they could find some successful plays. This could end up being a really high-scoring game, in my opinion, and Spring Valley has the weapons to match any type of high-scoring game. But they just got to make sure they don't turn the ball over, right? Be efficient because you have the weapons that you can beat any defense. So that's what I'm expecting offensively. Defensively, to me, you have to stop this potent air attack that Tappen Z has. With their quarterback, Seltzer's played really well, and obviously one of the best wide receivers in the class, Tarpey. Those are going to be the big thing. So to me, you got to bring, we know Spring Valley's going to bring pressure. They're going to try to force Tappen Z to get the ball out quickly because if they wait, that's when the big sack's going to come in. But they're going to have to man up against Tarpey if they're going to bring pressure. And so, the big question is going to be on the secondary and Jones and Toussaint. Whoever matches up on Tarpey is going to have his hands full. So you got to be careful of those double moves. You got to be careful you don't hit home on those blitzes. It's going to put a lot of pressure on your defense to man up. And obviously they cannot break contain. Because the quarterback, Seltzer, he's a really good athlete. He can run as well. So he'll try to run outside of you, especially if you try to send the pressure up the middle. And that can cause some big chunk plays. Mars, what are your thoughts on Spring Valley?
Yeah, Spring Valley has been showing to be a very fast and very efficient offense for the most part. And I really like the way that they run the ball. And I think that, like you said, that they're going to try to run downhill. And I think that whether it's going to be off-tackle plays, and I think that once they start trying to develop that run, then they'll start opening up, and that's where they really get dangerous. Once they start feeling like they can kind of run multiple different types of plays, that's where they start to kind of gain their momentum, and it's difficult to stop them.
Yes.
When it comes to defensively, I also like the way they play. They play aggressive. They play. They always attack you. They're trying to send the pressure, send the heat to force offenses to have to get rid of the ball fast. Or, I mean, they're trying to force them,
negative plays.
Yeah, they're trying to force them to have negative plays, but it's a high risk, high reward type of deal. So when it comes to what they need to do defensively, you need to hit on those gambles. You need to make sure you get to especially when it comes to passing, get to the quarterback, force him to have to make a bad throw, and then capitalize on the bad throw.
Yep. Going to Tappen Z, Mars, and before that, Spring Valley is my 4th ranked team. I put out my power rankings for A. I've been really impressed with Spring Valley. But let's go to Tappen Z, Mars. Offensively, quarterback Seltzer, before they went on pause, Mars, he has 5 passing touchdowns this year. He's been really solid for this team, throwing the ball and running the ball, stepping at the quarterback spot. I'm expecting them to put a heavy dose on quarterback Seltzer and their wide receiver Tarpey, who's caught all 5 touchdown passes from Seltzer. He's one of the best wide receivers in the class, arguably the best wide receiver in the class. He's a good route runner. He makes good contested catches. This guy could be a problem, and he's going to go up against some man coverage. So, there's going to be pressure on Tarpey to win those one-on-one battles and make those plays for his quarterback. So, to me, try to get the ball out quick because the pressure's coming. You're going to be in some man coverage. Get the ball out quick. Try to get your playmakers make plays in open space. And I'm interested to see if anyone else outside of Tarpey will make plays for this offense outside of Seltzer and Tarpey. So to me, offensive line is going to be massive for this. As you know, they're going to bring heat, Mars. So if this offensive line can control that pressure defense that Spring Valley brings, that will be a huge dictator if Tappen Z can move the ball offensively. Defensively, again, it's stopping the big plays. Spring Valley feasts on momentum-changing plays. When they hit a big play, Mars, that's when they pick up the tempo. That's when they really have a defense on their heels, and it really becomes like a basketball fast break or a basketball run, and it's hard to stop without calling a timeout. But to me, again, you're going up against the spread, you're going up against a high-paced offense. You're looking at guys like Seltzer, Martinez, Barrick, and Tarpey to make plays in space. They're going to have to if the defense is going to try to stop this potent Spring Valley offense. Mars, what are your thoughts on Tappen Z?
Yeah, and Tappen Z, I mean, both the quarterback has been playing well and Tarpey has been very impressive.
Yes.
And I really like the way that they've been throwing the ball. I just think that they need to really rely on the offensive line to really pick up the blitzes. I mean, we already talked about how Spring Valley is going to be sending the heat, right? And this is no joke. I mean, everyone knows that they're going to send the heat. It's whether or not the offensive line can pick it up or not. And I'm sure the coach has been practicing how to pick up any type of blitzes that come at you. And some of the hot reads for the offense to make. And I really think that it's going to have to – they have to hit on the gambles, right? It's the same way. Like I said before, high risk, high reward. You have to – now the offense needs to kind of hit on those gambles too. And they need to catch Spring Valley in a slow down stunt and hit them with a hot route to really get them to kind of back off. And then that's where the offense can start moving and kind of going along with the weakness that they just exposed. When it comes to defensively, as you mentioned, you need to be efficient. You need to make open field tackles. You need to slow down this very fast-paced offense of Spring Valley. If you can do that, then it gives your defense a breather and gives your offense the ability to try to make a big play and try to gain some points.
Yeah, for Tappen Z, they got to win those 50-50 because they're going to play some man coverage on you. You need those wideouts to make plays for you in this passing game. Mars, for me, that matchup, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at wide receiver Tarpey versus the DBs of Spring Valley. That's going to be a fun matchup because the DBs at Spring Valley, they play some good man-to-man. They play aggressive man-to-man, so they're going to try to jump balls. They're going to try to get into the wide receiver, and Tarpey's one of the best in the class. So this is going to be really fun to watch. Let's go to the next game, Mars. Clarkstown South, 2-1 at Clarkstown North, who is 0-1. This is another big-time rivalry between these two schools, Mars. Clarkstown South is 14-5 versus North since 2004, but they split in 2019. Clarkstown South won the first matchup 7-0, but they went to the qualifying round, and if you know what a qualifying round is, it means you need to win the game to get into the playoffs, and Clarkstown North upset Clarkstown South, knocked them out of the playoffs. They took their spot, and you know that must be digging at Clarkstown South, Mars, with these two rivals. But that's kind of the story between these two teams. Clarkstown North obviously had been on pause. They played in week 1, but outside of that, they've been shelved. Clarkstown South, they had a big win, bounce back win against Brewster. But let's start with Clarkstown South, Mars. Offensively, you're going to see a lot of the spread. You're going to see a lot of pace, a lot of RPO. And then they're going to hit you with the downhill running and the outside runs. So again, it starts with the fast-paced RPO stuff, and then they go into the run attack and the outside runs. The downhill running with Mariah hasn't been as good as I thought it would be. I'll be honest with you. It's just been too inconsistent. A really good running back. I think the offensive line has good size, but there's just something missing. It hasn't been consistent. They saw that against Brewster, and especially in the first half, they had to go to the passing attack. But I do think this week, Brewster's front is a little bit more potent than Clarkstown North, and I do think running downhill will be a little bit easier. So I do think that they can test the downhill running on Clarkstown North a little bit better, but Clarkstown North is tough and physical, and they have a really good linebacker in Len. So it won't be that easy. So I'm expecting to see a lot of edge rushes as well with Glycia and Martins and some quick throws from Rodan to those guys as well, to Glycia and Martins. And then to hit some big deep ones to Allen and Haney. That's going to be the big thing for this offense. The big difference is, do they hit on him or do they not? In the first half against Brewster, they weren't hitting on him. And then they were turning the ball over. Right? In the second half, they were being more efficient. They were hitting those deep patterns. They were hitting those outside runs on some big plays. So the big question to me is this offensive line going to play like it did in the second half versus Brewster or in the first half versus Brewster? Because that's going to be another big indicator of where this game goes, because in the second half, they played really well. In the first half, it was a struggle. Now, I don't think they're going up against opponent of a front. So we're going to see. Are they going to be consistent? That's the big thing with South, consistency, especially on the offensive end. Defensively, they've been shown that they've been susceptible to big plays. You've seen it almost each week against Clarkstown South in the passing game and on outside runs. So to me, in the second half, they were starting to penetrate better. They were forcing some turnovers. I think this game's going to be really reliant because they're going against the wing T on these linebackers and edge guys against this offense. Right, so I'm looking at the linebacker. I'm looking at the Mariahs at the linebacker spot. I'm looking at La Rosa at the outside linebacker spot. These defensive ends, they got to be really active because they're going to attack the C gap. Clarkstown North is going to run with these tailbacks on outside runs because they want to hit these big plays against them. So that's what I'm expecting. This defense, has to continue to play like they did in the second half That's by preventing big plays and forcing turnovers. Marsh, what are your thoughts on South?
Yeah, when it comes to the offense, like you said, spread, a lot of RPO. They're going to try to run downhill. They're going to try to run outside. But at the end of the day, I think that it's really going to depend on the offensive line, right? I mean, we already know that Brewster's front is very good. And I think that, as you mentioned, you're playing against North front, in my opinion, won't be as good. So I think that the first thing that they're going to do is test to see the theory, right? Yeah. Is this front going to be as potent as Brewster's? If it's not, then you'll see a lot more of this outside run. You'll see a lot more of this downhill running attack. But if it is kind of slowing down the run, they're going to hit the quick throws. Yeah. But I also think they'll be doing that anyway. I think that's kind of that's part of their game. That's just what they do. And I think by doing it efficiently, it's going to cause the defense to have to kind of figure out what's your game plan. And it's hard to really do that, especially when an RPO type of offense where you can run past option type of thing. You're kind of picking, right, depending on what you see. And as you mentioned, you need to be efficient in any type of way you're doing RPO. And when it comes to defense, limit the amount of mistakes that you make. Really try to squeeze down the gaps. Really force everything inside. Yeah. You want to set the edge. Make sure that they can't beat you by running.
Because South has bulk. South has bulk. It's the outside runs and the big plays outside that really hurt this team.
Yeah. So that's really what it is. Create the edge. Force everything inside.
Yeah. Going to Clarkstown North, Mars, it's hard because we saw one game Clarkstown North played, then they had to go on pause. You haven't got to see a lot from them. And, the missed practices and stuff like that. But they run that wing T offense. You know that they're going to try to attack the C gap in the edge with the running backs that they have in Farn and Katz, Gilsey, and Lee. And then they're going to try to go play action off that wing T and test the discipline of this Clarkstown South secondary, which you saw Brewster take advantage of on some plays. So I'm expecting Clarkstown North to try to test. Again, they run completely different offensive schemes. Brewster was going into the spread look. North does the wing T, but similar methods, right? So attacking the edges, attacking the C gap, getting outside, trying to break contain, and then hitting play action is going to be key for Clarkstown North. The only problem is, I mentioned some of the backs they have. The question is going to be at the quarterback spot, right? Who's going to lead this Clarkstown North offensive attack at the quarterback spot? Who's going to lead, who's going to step up out of the running back spot in this big rivalry game? Well, throw out the records. As you saw in 2019, throw out the records, right? This is a huge rivalry game. This could be a big moment for Clarkstown North to, because they went on COVID pause, turn their season around. So I'm interested to see who steps up for this team, especially on that offensive line as well, right? Who's going to step up? We know about Len, but who else is there? And that's going to be a big question offensively. Defensively, Mars, it starts with their leaders in Farnan and Len. There's their two veteran guys, the two Frank's finest of this team. They need to make big plays in space. And can this secondary net defenders stack up with the skill guys that Clarkstown South has in Martins and Glycia and stuff like that? Can they stack up? Because last year, Clarkstown North gave up some big plays in the passing game. South is going to test it. Right? So South will test that. I want to see if these skill guys can match up because, I do think they'll have a pretty solid front. How good, I'm not sure, and that's what I'm interested about this game. Marsh, what are your thoughts on Clarkstown North?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to North, it's really simple. I mean, the wing T with play action is going to be kind of what their offensive scheme is going to be on, and attacking the C gaps is going to be the bread and butter. But the big question is going to be, the quarterback. I mean, who's going to be the quarterback, and how well do they play? Yeah. Especially with the inconsistency of playing, they're not playing. It's going to be really tough. But it really is going to depend on the front. How well does the offensive line move? And on the other way, how well does the defensive line hold up? And I really think, as you mentioned before, can they stack up against a lot of the weapons that South has? I mean, as you mentioned, this is going to be a battle. I mean, no matter what the records are, this is a classic rivalry game, and I think that this is going to be a revenge game for South. But North, you kind of have to stay strong because now South is looking for that revenge. You don't want to lose. You don't want to lose this big rivalry game. And as you look at the records, it's you gotta continue this pace. You kind of kicked them out of the playoffs last year. You gotta have to show up. You gotta show that you're still winning. I forget what they call this game. Isn't there a special nickname for this game?
I don't know, our fans gotta let us know.
I think there's supposed to be a nickname for this game.
But I just tell you what, I think North, who's been waiting to play, they're hungry. So you got South looking for revenge, North who hasn't wanting to play. This is going to be interesting. Let's go to another game. Lourdes 0-1 at Brewster, who's 1-2. Coach Walsh going back to his old stomping grounds of Brewster in his last year. This will be the last time he visited Brewster. An interesting side story. But Brewster, they're 6-3 in this matchup since 2004, including a win in 2019. Lourdes last week was on COVID pause, lost to Somers. That's a tough first game to play. Brewster lost a tough, really hard one, fought game against South. So both these teams had some tough losses. But let's start with Lourdes. I know last week was a real struggle for them. Reduced practices. Their quarterback Jorgensen's still on quarantine. So to me, the question is Jorgensen playing? If he does, I think it's a boost to their passing game. He's a tall quarterback who throws well in between the tackles. But I got to give credit to quarterback Whitaker. I thought he played tough. And he's an athlete. He's a guy who you can move around if Jorgensen plays. And if he doesn't, he'll step in at the quarterback slot. And I thought he made some nice plays. But again, I don't think it's going to be easy running in between the tackles against Brewster. We saw that. Brewster has a really tough front. But I think they can run underneath these defensive ends, right? Do it similar to what Somers did. Run to the C-gap and run outside. If you can run outside, if you could throw on them, I think that's going to be the best case scenario against Brewster. You saw South do it. They made some big plays on the outside and on jet sweeps. I'm going to think that Lourdes tries to test that as well. And you can do that with Krause run to the outside. You could throw the ball to Rappleyea, who I think you'll see their pass attack get a little bit better as obviously they practice more. But they have some edge guys who can make some plays for Lourdes. And I think they're going to test this Brewster contain because I do think that front seven is difficult to run against. But I do think Lourdes has the guys that they can test outside. Defensively, Mars, you got to prevent Rhodes on those big touchdown runs. He had another big one, obviously, against Clarkstown South. Once he gets into the space, he really is a home run hitter. So I'm looking at these linebackers in Gioa and Salado, outside linebacker Rappleyea, and Krause at the secondary spot. They got to be really active. They got to make plays in space against this spread look, which is going to be big. To me, I think when you can get pressure on Donahue, that's when he tends to make mistakes. And so I'm looking at this defensive front to see if they can get to the quarterback. They had a tough time doing it against Somers, although they run a very different style. But you're going to see the play-action pass. You're going to see Donahue try to make some big plays in the passing game. Can this defensive line cause some pressure and allow the secondary to maybe make some plays and force some turnovers? Marsh, what's your thoughts on Lourdes?
Yeah, it's really tough for Lourdes. You're on pause. First game you go up against probably the top tier team right now in A.
My number one team.
Top tier team in A, and you played tough, right? Yeah. But it was just it's just such a hard game to start
practices.
With. Yeah, it's just such a hard game to start. But this is going to be definitely a test to see what Lourdes has. And obviously, like you said, if Jorgensen's playing, that definitely does elevate their offense to what they were before. But even so, Whitaker did do a pretty good job. Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because Brewster has a really good front, and
that's what scares me because they got after the quarterback against Lourdes. Somers did, and Brewster has that capability of doing that too. So that's what makes me nervous. They got to protect the quarterback better.
I think that and I said this too with a fairway game. I said, but a lot of times offensive lines don't struggle 2 weeks in a row. A lot of times, granted, you're playing against two really good fronts. Right, and that's just such a tough thing to do. But I really think that the offensive line is going to have to. That they're forced to improve. They have to get better. And I think that they will have a bounce back game this week. And I think that you'll see Lourdes kind of target a lot of their playmakers like Krause and Rappleyea, and I really think that you'll see more efficiency when it comes to Lourdes' offense, and I think that they're going to try to test the contain of Brewster, and I think that Lourdes will definitely look a lot more efficient than they did against Somers.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see more spread and less eye from Lourdes in this game. Brewster, let's go to all of them offensively. Morris, I thought again their front I thought played solid, especially in the first half. Second half, turnovers became a major problem, and then penetration was causing another issue, right? So quarterback Donahue, he had that one touchdown pass. He made some nice plays in the first half, but he had 3 interceptions and a fumble in the game. So they have to clean up the turnovers. That's been a big issue that Brewster has to clean up because that really cost them the game, the turnovers. That's what really did it. That was the turning point of the game. But they're running back Rhodes. They go into the spread. They want to get Rhodes out in space because when he can get past the initial line to gain, that's when he hits those home runs. That's when he creates big-time plays, and I think they're going to do that. But I think they found some weapons in the passing game in Cardone and Saya that have become nice targets for Donahue, and I think they're going to try to go run with Rhodes in space, throw some play action with them, and try to just reduce the turnovers. Because I do think with the front that they have, they can make some plays offensively. This is a tough Brewster team, and they just have to, they just have to tune up. They just have to, losing the turnover battle has been a major issue, and you can't do it if you're going to have 4 turnovers a game. That's not going to happen. Defensively, Mars, the secondary is definitely going to be tested, right? So, you're going to get some eye looks. You're going to get some spread looks. I think they can line up versus the eye looks pretty well. Again, when you look at the front with Milano, led by Milano, and the linebacker core led by Rienzi, they have played pretty well, right? It's the outside stuff that's where they got hurt a little bit, right? From Clarkstown South, they got hurt, and in the passing game, they got hurt. And I'm expecting Lourdes to test that. They're going to run some jet sweeps. They're going to go into the spread looks and try to throw on them and test this secondary. So it's going to be big for the secondary to try to make some plays, Mars. What are your thoughts on Brewster?
Yeah, when it comes to Brewster, I feel like it was just the biggest thing was efficiency. The offensive line needs to kind of win the line of scrimmage, and you definitely need to limit the amount of turnovers you have. I mean, it's really hard to get any sort of momentum on the offense when you turn the ball over as much as they did. And I think that if you do so, your offense is definitely going to look a lot better. I mean, you found that you do have some playmakers. You do have some weapons. It's just about keeping the ball in your hands. I mean, holding on to this. Defensively, I mean, the front is nasty, but the big issue is going to be, can you set the edge? Can you contain a lot of these outside plays? And the secondary is going to be tested as well. I mean, you just need to be efficient on defense. Give your offense as many chances as possible to score points. And like I just said, the offense needs to just stop turning the ball over, and you'll be able to move the ball down the field. And
defensively, if Lourdes is going to try to pass the ball, someone was able to get to the quarterback, and I'm thinking Brewster's thinking the same thing. We can get to this quarterback. We can cause some pressure and kind of stifle this pass attack of Lourdes, and I'm expecting them to do that. But the matchup I'm looking at these Lourdes wide receivers, Mars, and these outside and these backs who go out into the passing game against this Brewster secondary. I think that's going to be a big matchup in this game. Let's go to the next one, Mars. Rye 3-0 at Eastchester, who's 2-1. Another very interesting matchup, but Rye is 7-1 versus Eastchester. Mars, they've won 6 straight, including a win in 2019, 45-20. If we look at Rye, Mars offensively, it obviously all starts with the running game. This group averages 32.6 points a game, which is number 2 in Class A out of 20 teams. This O-line has been really impressive. And then obviously their stud running back Whaling behind this offensive line. Even when you think you have them for about 2 quarters, they find a way to grind you out. This is a complete 4-quarter fight when you go against this rush attack. Whaling had 117 yards and 2 touchdowns against a tough Yorktown front. But what has impressed me, this pass attack is improving, Mars. Quarterback Kovacs, he had a passing touchdown in 2 straight games. Liam Lavelle has become a really reliable target, and so is Perez Signini. So you're seeing this pass attack improve, which if that is the case, this makes Rye a much more difficult team to beat because of how potent this rush attack is, and now they have something that can complement it. But I'm expecting Eastchester to bail out to stop the run. They're going to have to, right? Because if you can't stop Whaling, you have no chance. So you do still want to put the ball into the quarterback's hands. But I'm expecting Rye to run the ball, and if they stack the box, I'm thinking they're going to test with these wideouts this Eastchester secondary. And, the quarterback definitely growing confidence, and I think they'll make some plays. Defensively, Mars, they're ranked 6th out of 20. I think last week this unit really took a step forward. I think they proved last week they could be very physical and stop the run, and they're going to have to stop the run game because Eastchester has one of the most potent rush attacks in Class A. And, it's led by their physical offensive line that has solid size, and their 2-headed monsters, Ferradino and D'Agostino. So I'm looking for guys like Surhoff, Griffiths, Tepedino, O'Byrne to be very active like they were last game. And a guy in the back end like Barlett, who's very active in the run game as well. These are the kind of guys who are going to have to step up. They had a big game last week as a unit and led by those guys that I mentioned, and they're going to have to do the same thing this time around, Mars. What's your thoughts on Rye?
I mean, Rye looks dominant. I mean, you have a very potent offense. Running the ball, they've really been top-notch. I mean, there's only – and really think about it, I think if you look at Somers, how well they've been able to run the ball, Rye has been, dominating. Like especially offensive line, Whaling has been moving. I mean, moving along, with – it looks so easy, right? Easy. And as you said, the passing has been getting better and better. And this is now looking like a very full Rye team that if you can get the passing going with this rush offense, I mean, that's just crazy. Yep. That's just scary how good it is. And when you look at defense, I mean, they've proven to play very aggressive. And I really think that they just need to kind of grind the game out. And when you watch against Rye, and you said this before, it's like going to a boxing match. You're going to go the full the full ticket, right?
Yep.
You're going the full all the rounds, and you have to keep grinding with Rye, and Rye usually comes out the victor because they have the ability to just run you over, and the defense does its job and it gets its offense back on the field.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you go to Eastchester, again, offensively, they have a really good potent rush attack too, one of the best in the class. They average 25.3 points a game, which is 6th in Class A. This is a good offense, and this offensive line has some thickness and strength to it, and they've been impressive. And we thought they were strength before the year, and they have proven to be that. But let's talk about the man who runs the show, and that's their quarterback, Sparandino, Mars. He's had over 200-plus yards last week. He has 7 touchdowns the last 2 weeks, Mars, 7 touchdowns. This guy is the real deal. He makes plays both with his leg and his arm. He's really deadly running the ball. They don't pass a lot, but when he does, he's been pretty efficient at it. So he has been the man. And they're going to, he's going to have to carry the big load. But he's not alone, right? They have their athlete, and I call him an athlete, D'Agostino, because he can catch the ball, he can run the ball, and he's even throwing the ball around. So, both these guys are going to be key cogs. And in the passing game, Cam Clark has been really reliable. He had that game-winning touchdown on the fake field goal last week. He's been a reliable target in the passing game. So, they have some weapons out there. But obviously the lead man is Sparandino behind this offensive line, and that's going to have to run the show. Defensively, Morris, I think they're going to try to put a similar blueprint that Yorktown did, right? You got to bail out to stop the run. And you got to try to trust your secondary can make plays and match up with the receivers. It won't be easy, but I think that's the best course of action. Is you have to bail out to stop the run. But the problem is, you give up 24.3 points per game. The defense is going to have to step up. They're going to have to prevent these big plays that they've given up before. So they're going to have to be physical. Can they match the physicality of Rye is the question that I have. Mars, what are your thoughts on Eastchester?
Yeah, Eastchester has proven to be a very efficient offense. I really like the way they've been playing. Specifically, Sparandino has been a really good athlete, and I really like the way the offensive line's been playing. And when you look at the important matchup, the X factor, it's going to be the offensive line and Sparandino. I think the defense is definitely going to have to step up big time and stop the run. Just literally force the pass to beat you entirely. And if that happens, then you have to die by that sword. At the end of the day, I really think that that's your only strategy at this point, just because how well Whalen's been playing.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that by getting your offense back on the field, you really have to let your playmakers play.
Absolutely. In the matchup, I'm looking at this Rye offensive line versus the Eastchester defensive front 7. Because if Eastchester's going to have a chance to win this game, they're going to have to step up and step up big, because we know that Rye offensive line can be a handful. Let's go to the game of the week, Mars. And our game of the week this week is Harrison 3-0 at John Jay Cross River, who's also 3-0. Really interesting, fun football game I'm expecting. John Jay Cross River in this matchup, 4-2 versus Harrison. They have won 3 straight, including a win in 2018. Last week, Harrison had a very impressive win against Sleepy Hollow. John Jay beat Lakeland. This is going to be a fun game to me, Mars. And let's start with Harrison. Offensively, this is the number 1 offense in Class A, Mars. It's not Rye. It's not John Jay Cross River. It's not Somers. It's Harrison who's got the number 1. They average 35.7 points per game. They run the option, and they have a very potent rush attack. I think a more potent rush attack than Rye. And so, what makes this option, they run it really efficiently. They attack all the gaps. They can hit you on the inside. They can hit you on the outside. And they can hit you with play action. And they have all the bells and whistles. They have the motions. They have the counters. They have the twists. The Harrison option is a fun, if you like option football, which I do like, it's fun to watch. And a lot of credit goes to the coaching staff and the players. But it has to start with the offensive line, Mars. These guys are not towering figures. They're not extremely large guys. But what they do, they move their feet well. They get good leverage on their blocks. They block well at the second level. They do a good job sealing defenders off and allowing these stud athletes to make plays in space. And that's all they can ask for. And it starts obviously with Casey Judelson, who's had over 300 yards rushing, Marks, the last 2 games. 300 yards over. They can run him inside. They run him off tackle. They run him outside. He is one of the best players in the section, and he continues to prove that. And then goes their quarterback, Troy Strauss. This guy is the orchestrator of this option offense, along with the tailbacks running on the outside and running the counters. He's had a really good year, Strauss. And some of these other guys like Trollo, have done a good job at the tailback spot. And then he goes into the play action. They only throw like 7 times a game, Mars, and they throw it to guys like Wyatt Keller and Palatucci. But Strauss has been 50% or better throwing the ball most of these games, and they made people pay. And I think against this aggressive, fast John Jay Cross River defense, who really strong at the point of attack, you're really going to have to rely on these counters to catch them off guard because it's not going to be that easy running outside on these guys. And it's not going to be easy running inside. So you're going to have to hit on some of these pass plays. You're going to have to hit on some of these counters to keep them off balance and to get back to what your bread and butter is, and that's running, similar looking plays, but one's handing it to the fullback, one's pitching it, right? One's play action. They all look the same, but they try to test the discipline of your defense at each level, every play, and that's what they want to get. They want to keep the defense on its heels. Defensively, Mars, it's not a bad defense either. 15.7 points a game, that's seventh. They have athleticism on this side, but the question I have is, can they match up physically with the offensive line and the rush attack of John Jay Cross River? Cross River has one of the more physical offensive lines. So I'm looking at this defensive front seven. Starting at the defensive line, Karapitas, the linebackers, Judson Troilo, Ventrilo, Arcara. They got to be physical. They got to stop this Giardino and Connolly run attack and force them to be a passing team. Mars, what are your thoughts on Harrison?
I mean, Harrison, it's a surprise because you haven't seen Harrison be this potent offensive force like in a long time. Yeah, it's been a while. And I think it's just kind of funny that with all these powerhouse teams we've been talking about, and Harrison's the number one offense. I think that's just great to really see. And they've been very efficient when it comes to the option. They kind of hit you in all different directions. You don't know where the ball's going. A lot of times they throw every type of motion in. They have misdirection. And I think that's going to be the crucial thing about playing against John Jay Cross River. The misdirection plays have to hit, yep. Right? Cross River has been very efficient, right? And the point is you have to catch them off guard, and then once you get them off guard, you need to make a big play out of it because they're not going to allow a lot of big plays because Cross River is also very well coached. Yeah. So I really think it's going to depend on the offensive line and really winning those big plays that I just mentioned. And defensively, like you said, the most difficult thing is going to be, stopping this offensive line from just pushing people around. Yeah. And I think that if they can kind of keep the game back in their in the offense's hands, they can control the pace, the momentum, and they'll just grind out the clock.
When I look at this John Jay Cross River offense, Mars, I think we take advantage of John Jay Cross River's offense because every year they're a potent attack. Mm-hmm. Right? They rank third. They average 30.3 points a game, which is third in Class A. Usually the focus is on the quarterback, and the quarterback deserves a lot of credit. But this offensive line is one of the best in class. We talk about it each week. They're one of the best in the class. They're very physical. They move people off the line of scrimmage and at the point of attack. And then they allow their athletes, at quarterback, Nick Giardino, who's the low-end player of the week last week, Mars, who last week he had 222 total yards, 3 touchdowns to make plays. He's not a tall guy, Mars, but he is slippery. And when he gets open field, he has really good speed to hit big chunk plays. He's had a good season so far. And he's not the only one. Their running back Connolly, another guy who makes a lot of plays in this run game. With this offensive line, with that two-headed rush attack, they cause a lot of issues for defenses. With Harrison, they have a lot of athleticism, but the physicality is the big question. Can they match up physically? And I'm expecting Cross River to test that with this offensive line to try to get these running backs and Giardina in space. Outside of that, then they're going to go into the pass attack, right? Get the ball to DiChiara, get the ball to Zaccanino. The best thing that they can do against a potent Harrison offense is to keep them on the sideline, Mars. Right? So run the ball physically against Harrison. You be the one that controls this game, and you be the one that controls the clock, and keep that Harrison offense on the sideline. Keep your defense rested, and allow Giardina, Connolly to really run it down their throats and then hit off the play action passes on these guys when they get tired. I think that's the best course of action for Cross River. Defensively, Mars, we talked about Harrison being the number one offense. Defensively, John Jay Cross River is the number one defense. No, it's not Somers. It's actually John Jay Cross River. Mars, they give up 2 points a game. They gave up their first 6 points last week. It's an average of 2 points. That's number one in Class A. And I tell you what, they are fast and long at each level, but it's got to start up front. Guys with like Stein, Furr, Gonzalez. These guys make a lot of plays up front. They don't get moved off their spot. And these linebackers might be the best linebacking crew in Class A. Halafanua is one, leading the way, but I got O'Reilly, Brendan. They run that 3-3-5, but they like to mix it up because their DBs can be very aggressive. They like to mix up to a 4-2 look or 4-3 look. They move guys around. They cause pressure. They send stunts. This is a well-run defense. Coaching deserves a lot of credit. This is the number one defense in Class A. And, they could stop the run. Even when they go into those 3-3-5 personnel, they can stop the run up front. And if they can force you into a passing attack with the 5 DBs that they like to put on the field, it's going to be a tough day for any offense, and I think that's what they're going to try to do against Harrison Mars.
Yeah, when you look at Cross River, they're one of the most untalked about teams in A. I think they have one of the most dynamic offenses that you can look at in all of A. How effective the run is, how they can pass. Their offensive line is just moving people. They're like a bunch of trucks, just straight up moving piles. And I really like the way that they've been playing aggressive. And on top of that, the defense, right, has just been potent. They've just been suffocating teams to the point where, like you said, 2 points per game averaging. That's just crazy, right? It's just a team that is well coached, that has it all, and that's why this is definitely a game of the week. I mean, because you number one offense versus number one defense, it's going to be a showdown. And the one thing that I'll definitely say that gives Cross River a big nod is the fact that their front has been playing as well as they have, and they can control the line of scrimmage against any team. And it's going to be very interesting.
Before I go to the matchups, Lawrence, I did a breakdown on both teams. One on that number one Harrison offense that I'm going to show the audience, and another on the number one rated defense for John Jay Cross River. So let's let the audience see our Harrison breakdown and then our Cross River one. We're going to talk about Harrison's number one offense this year, and I tell you what, Harrison's offense has been very impressive. They put a lot of pressure on a defense because they can attack inside, off tackle, and on the edge. And they really test the discipline of your football players. And a lot of these plays look to be similar. They have the same motions. They have the same pass to the football. But different people can hurt you at different times. It could be the fullback one time. It could be the quarterback taking the option. It could be the tailback getting the pitch. And then it could lead to other plays like counters and play action pass. And this offense is humming right now, but it's got to start with this offensive line. And you could see this offensive line is not the biggest group. Okay, but what they do, they move their feet well, they block at the second level well, and these backs don't need a lot of daylight. But these linemen do a good job of sealing off defenders and giving them a path. And this first play, again, you're going to see this quite often in the Harrison offense, right? You're going to get some down block action on these defensive linemen. You're going to get this tailback up to the linebacker, and you're going to see this fullback, Casey Juddleson, off tackle. Quarterback's going to ride him. And we're going to see, does he give it to him? Does he keep it? And then the option begins. Right? But for this play, they're going to give it to Casey Juddleson, who's one of the best backs in the section. Once he gets ahead of steam going, he's really difficult to stop. And now once he gets to the open field, he has that speed to hit the home run plays, big chunk plays. Right? So right from the get-go, you're going to see they're going to hand it off to Casey Juddleson. You can see the linemen doing a pretty good job. You can see these guys getting to the second level again. These guys move their feet well. They're athletic guys. Okay? Look at what we see here. He hands it off tackle. Again, really well done. They seal him off to the inside. Look at the blocking on the second level. That's really nice, right? Again, a body on a body. And you're giving Casey Juddleson, who untouched 5 yards downfield, that spells bad news for a defense. And there he goes. Again, just really quick. Look at these guys. Really nice job blocking out there. Again, doesn't have to give him too much room, just enough. And he's off to the races. Let's go to another play. Again, similar formation, right? 2 tailbacks, well, 2 slots, 2 wide receivers. You're going to see the same type of motion, right? You're going to see these linemen. You're going to see the tailback going up to linebacker. You're going to see the fake off tackle quarterback. Do they give it? Do they run the option? This time they're going to run the option. But again, testing the discipline of the defense. This time he rides him. This outside guy does a good job. This is his man. But who's got the pitch man? That's the question. Who's got the pitch man? By the way, this is really well done. Whenever you run the option, you want to have nice spacing between the quarterback and its pitch man. Sometimes you see that they're too close or too far. This is really nice depth. But again, look at the quarterback. Attack the edge. Sucker him in, and then there's pitch. I love this too. Look at the blocking on the outside. And this leads to a nice long play. Right? This leads to a good play. Finally, let's go to the final one. After you get the off-tackle runs, after you get the option pitches, after you get some play-action passes, now things open up for the counter. So this is what we're going to see right here. They're going to fake a run to Casey to the left. You're going to see these linemen pulling. They're going to counter back with the tailback. I think they're going to have to use this against an aggressive defense like John Jay. They're going to have to get these counters, and they're going to have to hit. Watch these linemen move. There's the counter. Look at the seal right here. Great kick-out block. The seal on the inside, and I like this. Again, blocking at the second level. Look at that alleyway. I mean, look at this. That's awesome. And that's an easy touchdown. For this video, we're going to talk about John Jay Cross River's defense, and I really like this unit. These guys have a nice mix of speed and size and strength, and they're one of the best defenses in the class. And normally when you speak to John Jay, they talk about being in a 3-3-5, and what that means is they got 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, and 5 DBs. But it comes with a little twist with John Jay because they like to bring pressure. They like to have guys move around. So they'll show up in a 4-2. They'll show up in a 4-3. But personnel-wise, they are in a 3-3-5. But they like to move things around. They like to create penetration. And these guys are impressive, and we'll go over a couple plays. Again, when you look at this and when you think about a 3-3-5, you think, well, this gives us a chance to run the ball. And because John Jay Cross River has good strength and good speed, they rely on these front 7 guys to make a lot of plays in the run game. And you're going to see. The offense comes out, they have 9 guys in the box, including the quarterback who's a threat to run. Defensively, they only have 7. Right? They have 7 guys. You would think this is a favorable matchup for the offense. Right? And they're going to try to test it. They're going to try to run some power. Right? You're going to see a double team at the point of attack, and this guy's one of the best defensive linemen in the class. You're going to see a guard pull around to try to get the linebacker. You're going to see this tackle go up to the second level to get the linebacker. Kick out block by this H-back. A lead block by this tailback on the outside. And they're going to try to run power right underneath. But you're going to see, you would think this is a favorable matchup. But with these D linemen using their speed and strength, with these linebackers attacking the line of scrimmage, could be one of the better linebacking cores in Class A. And you have linebackers and DBs who are more athletic guys, long guys, but they have to be aggressive in the run game, and they have that at John Jay. And watch it right here. But look at John Jay, right? 3-3-5, but look at these guys. This guy coming up to the line of scrimmage. They're going to be sending a stun off the edge. This D-line is going to shoot the gap. Yes, it's a 3-3-5 personnel, but they like to mix it up. They like to cause penetration and pressure. Watch the point of attack by these 2 guys, showing their strength. Right? Look at this right away. Look at the penetration by the defensive lineman. These 2 guys. Look at the blitzer. Look at the linebackers attacking the line of scrimmage right away. Look at this defensive tackle. Again, one of the best in the class. He's holding up against a double team. Not moving off his spot one bit. John Jay makes it very difficult to run the ball. Look at them finish it off. Again, really good job. Watch them snap the ball. Watch them shoot at. Watch the linebackers read and attack the line of scrimmage. You see this quite often watching John Jay. The defense is tough. Again, something similar. Yorktown's got 8 guys in the box. Here's that 7 men in the box. Right? You would think it'd be a favorable matchup. But with John Jay Cross River, besides just the group talent that they have, they also have that stud defensive tackle that I'm talking about. Okay? You're going to have these big-time players make some big-time plays in this game. Yorktown's going to fake a jet. They're going to run a quarterback keep. You're going to see some power, action, guys pulling. They're going to try to single block on this guy right here. That's a tough task for any offensive line. Okay, look at him. That's just a grown man play right there. That's tough sledding for any offensive lineman to single block. Right? You saw in the last video, they tried to double him, which freed up the linebackers. This time, they try to get to the linebackers, single block them. That's a tough task. This defense can beat you multiple ways, and it starts with those guys in the front 7 that make a lot of plays in the run game. And they're going to have to against this Harrison football team. All right, Mars, let's go to the matchups. And before I go to my matchup, I do want to talk about the kicking game a little because I think that's going to be a big game. And in a game that could come down to the wire, the kicking game is going to be big. The special teams is going to be big. Look for kicker or Lavitz of John Jay Cross River and kicker Reed of Harrison. Both have had pretty nice seasons so far to make some plays in special teams, Mars, that could change this game. Keep an eye out for those 2 guys. But the matchup, obviously, Mars, you mentioned it. I mentioned it. It's the number 1 offense of Harrison versus the number 1 defense of John Jay Cross River. Something's got to give. And so I'm really intrigued to see this matchup against these 2 guys. And for me, the player to watch, I'm looking, in big games, big time moments, you look to your biggest players. And I'm looking at Harrison's Casey Jellison, both on both sides of the ball, running back and linebacker. For them, Harrison to pull off this win, he's going to have to play big. He's going to have to be, play like the superstar that I think he is. And I'm interested to see what he does in this game. Let's go to the game picks. Marsh, you ready?
I'm ready to roll, man.
Let's do it. I think we've been picking pretty darn well this year as well. Let's continue that hot trend, Mars. Let's start it off. Lakeland 1-2 at Walter Panas 0-3. We did the breakdown on this one. I'm going with Lakeland, Mars. I think Lakeland just has a little too much for Walter Panas. I think Tyler Santucci will have a bounce back game. This pass attack as a unit, not just him, is going to bounce back. I think they make enough plays to win this one.
Yeah, I'm picking Lakeland too. I feel like they've been very efficient recently. They've been playing against really tough opponents. I also think Panas is a young team with a young staff.
Yeah.
They're still implementing their system. I know it's a rivalry game. I think it'll be closer than what people may think, but I'm still picking Lakeland.
Spring Valley 2-0 at Tappen Z 1-1. I'm going Spring Valley. Mars, Spring Valley is one of the best teams in A. I don't think they get enough credit. I know the COVID pause and the whole Clarkstown South thing, kind of took the picture away of the team they actually have, and it's been a pretty darn solid team with a lot of speed and a lot of athleticism. I think it'll just cause too much pressure for Tappen Z's offense. And I think Spring Valley wins.
Yeah, I'm going Spring Valley too. They've been really hitting on a lot of their stunts. They've been causing pressure, and defensively, they've just been very efficient. Offensively, they're just as efficient. So I'm picking Spring Valley.
This is the late game that got put on. Nyack 1-0 at Somers, who's 3-0. They were supposed to play Beacon. This is a really interesting matchup because I'm interested to see Nyack, who has some solid size, runs the wing T, similar to Somers. Not the same exact formations, but similar concepts. Nyack did a good job of carting some motion blast against Mayapack. I don't know if it works the same against this front. I'm going with Somers. This defensive front is really tough, Mars. Somers won 6 straight. Somers has, their defense is number 2 in Class A. And I just think that they're just such a tough matchup up front for any team. And Nyack is going to have to make some plays in the passing game. I think Kevin Fowler actually has an improved game this week. He's going to have to make plays in the passing game, but I just think this Somers defense is just too much. It'll be a little bit low scoring, and I think Somers will run enough. Again, we don't know the status of their quarterback, Kasau. So I think Somers does win, but this is going to be a tough grind out game.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Somers. I think this is going to be the Kaiser show, and I think Kaiser is going to just implement his will, and I think they're just going to run the ball with Kaiser as much as possible. I'm picking Somers here.
Let's go Clarkstown South 2-1 at Clarkstown North, who's 0-1. Mars, the big Clarkstown rivalry. Who gets the victory on this one?
I think Clarkstown South is going to have their revenge, and I think that they've been very efficient. I know they've been playing tough opponents, but they really showed how well they can move the ball against Brewster. I mean, Brewster has had a very good front. I just think that using their different means of attack, whether it be through the spread and different ways of RPO, I think they're going to go downhill. They'll attack the outside run, and then they'll actually hit on those RPO type of plays, and I think they're going to win this one.
The question to me is which Clarkstown South we're going to see, the first half against Brewster or the second half versus Brewster? I think we see a closer version of the second half versus Brewster. I do think Clarkstown South gets its revenge. They win. Clarkstown North is going to be a tough team. I'm interested to see this game because I want to see what Clarkstown North, because it's hard to see what they've become. So I want to see what they do. I know they got 2 games. I do think they lose this first one, and we'll talk about that second one. Let's go to the next one. Lourdes 0-1 at Brewster, who's 1-2. Who wins this game and why?
I'm gonna go with Lourdes. I think that Lourdes is kind of now regaining their footing, and I think that playing the first week playing against Somers, it's just tough. I mean, but I think that now they have more time to practice, more time to get ready for a game, and I really think they're going to be efficient. I think they're going to come out aggressive, and I really like the way that they did grind against Somers, and I think they're going to start targeting a lot of their big playmakers like Ratliea, and they're going to try to be as efficient as possible. I'm going to pick Lourdes on this.
This game I went back and forth a lot on because, again, I liked the Brewster team. I liked the Lourdes team before the season started. But I am going to go Lourdes as well. I think what Lourdes does its best is throwing the ball. If Jorgensen plays, I think that definitely makes me feel better. If he doesn't, it makes me feel a little less better. What makes me very nervous is this offensive line of Lourdes, who I think will play improved football. If they don't, then Bruce is going to win this game. But I do think they will, and I think Lourdes wins. Let's go to the next game. Mars Pelham 0-3 at Sleepy Hollow, who's 1-2. I'm going to go with Sleepy Hollow, Mars. Both these teams, they're similar defensively. Pelham gives up 28.3 points a game. Sleepy Hollow gives up 28.7. So both these defenses have given up big plays. but offensively, Sleepy Hollow is a little more potent, right? Offensively, they score 19.7 versus Pelham 16.3. I think there's going to be a quarterback battle between Good and Volpe. I think Good makes a few more plays and they end up winning. Sleepy Hollow is also 4-0 versus Pelham since 04. I'm going with Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, I'm going to go Sleepy Hollow too. Like you mentioned, usually when you see defenses that are nearly identical and how efficient they are, the offense then wins that matchup. But I'm going to go with Sleepy Hollow because their offense, I think, was more efficient than Pelham's is.
Let's go Rye, 3-0 at Eastchester, 2-0. Can Eastchester pull off the upset? No, I don't think so, Mars. I think Rye's going to win this one. Eastchester is a tough, gritty team who can run the ball really well, but Rye showed, and they proved last week they could play physical, and that's going to be the big difference maker. I think Rye makes a few more plays in the passing game that Eastchester can't. I'm going Rye.
Yeah, I'm going to go Rye too. Rye's rush offense has been dominating. Their offensive line has been dominating, and even now their pass is starting to get there. I think that they just look like a full team, a top-tier team in A, and I think they're going to continue this momentum going forward, so I'm picking Rye.
Monday game, Yorktown 1-2 at Greeley, who's 0-2. I'm going to go Yorktown, Mars. Yorktown has a really tough defense. I think they're going to cause some issues for Greeley. The rush attack is physical. Again, they don't have Keith Boyer for the rest of the year, so explosive plays are not going to be that easy. But I do think Yorktown has enough. And, Yorktown's had a tough schedule so far. I think Yorktown defensively is what's going to lean on this game. They're also 5-0 versus Greeley since 04. I'm going Yorktown.
Yeah, I'm going to go Yorktown too. I mean, they played a really tough game last week. Their defense has really been grinding out these games. And I think that they're going to now kind of reevaluate everything and just push through and get this victory here against Greeley.
Yep, next on a Tuesday, Mars, Mayapack is 1-2 at Clarkstown North, who is 0-1, but I picked them to go 0-2. I'm going to go Clarkstown North. I don't think they get swept in these 2 games in 4 days. I think they're going to split one of them, and I think it's going to be this game. Again, we talked about this game a couple weeks ago. Traveling to Clarkstown North on a Tuesday is not going to be an easy trip, and I think Clarkstown North, off a loss to South, is going to be extra motivated. I think they're going to play hard, and I think coach is going to keep them, they're a well-coached team. Coach Trongo does a good job with Clarkstown North. I think they're physical. I think they're going to run the wing tee and try to attack the edge of Mayapack. Big question to me is, can Clarkstown North stop the best on rush attack is going to be the question. But I do think they enough, and Clarkstown North is going to win.
Yeah, I'm going to go the same thing. I'm going to say North. I feel like when you look at Mayapack's defense, they struggle on the contain. They struggle to stop anything on the outside of the tackles, and I think that's what North is going to do, the attack. And as you mentioned, after we both said that North was going to lose against South, I think it's going to kind of give them some fire in their stomach to come out as aggressive as possible. And that ride to North is horrible from Mayapack. I mean, that's a tough ride after school. After algebra class, you're going to have to now take the ride over to North. I don't know about that one, so I think I'm going to pick North on this one.
Last, our game of the week, Mars. Harrison, 3-0 at John Jay Cross River, also 3-0. Mars, who do you got and why?
Well, when you look at both these teams, the most interesting thing is the fact that you have the number 1 offense versus the number 1 defense. And I really like the fact that Harrison has really become super efficient when running the ball. And they not only do they show that they're efficient on running, their offensive line has just been moving people as well. I mean, and they're not even stature side like big. Yeah. They've just been very technically sound. And the fact that they now have every single type of motion in the book really causes defenses to kind of bug out. Then you take a look at John Jay Cross River, you have an offense that has been very potent as well. They can move the ball in all different means. Defense has been the most impressive from Cross River, being able to stop really anybody. And I think when you look at the edge here, I'm going to go John Jay Cross River. And the reason why I'm doing this is because when you look at the offensive line, this could be a bold take if you want to call it that, but I'm going to call them the best offensive line in Class A. And I am fully believing in that because John Jay Cross River is just super efficient running the ball, and they are efficient even passing as well whenever they feel like it. And it has to do a lot with not only just their playmakers, but the offensive line. And a lot of times people don't give the offensive line a lot of credit, but I'm going to give them the credit. They are the number 1 offensive line in Class A, and they're going to be the driving force on why they win this game.
I think this is a really exciting matchup, and, both these teams, Harrison has the number 1 offense. They also have a top 10 defense. John Jay Cross River has a top 3 offense as well. They're 3rd in offense, number 1 defense. I think John Jay Cross River's offense is going to be the one that changes this game. And I'm going to go with John Jay Cross River. I think they're going to keep that Harrison offense on the sideline. I think they're going to run efficiently. I think they're going to control the pace of this game, control the clock of this game. And I think the defense is going to make enough plays and force Harrison to be a throwing team. I'm interested to see what their coach Velez does on the defensive side of the ball for John Jay Cross River. But I do think the offense is going to play a big factor in this game, and I think Cross River is going to be the victor at the end. All right, everyone, that was our show. I appreciate everyone tuning in. I hope you guys have a sports-filled and safe week, and we'll see you all very soon.